Let's see if this is even close to working now. All right, give it a minute, and then we shall see. So yeah, have you had any thoughts then on Firehose Fairies?
A couple, yeah, actually. But we'll wait till we get into the um wait till we get into the cast to talk Firehose Fairies.
For sure.
And Rocky, because that's part of the cast, I think.
Yeah, is like following up on the prior stuff, right?
Yeah, I think so, 100%. Should I start recording here on Audacity? Audacity.
No, not yet. Sorry, man. So now I have to connect.
Oh, dude, you're good. I got all day. Don't worry about me.
All right, cool.
I know. We said we were gonna go live at like 2, but who cares? I mean,
No, yeah, I agree for sure.
I mean, who knows if anybody's gonna be there except for Jordan Hopper?
That might be disconcerting. This one thing says that we're live, so let me check that on my phone. This might be the most boring 1.5 minutes of YouTube history.
Live streaming of all time. Oh, I'm sure there's boringer.
Very, very possible. Now, how do I actually check to see if we're live? uh, yeah, if so, fantastic. I will cut this out later because I you can do that because of magic. Are we live? We are actually live right now. Because I you can do that. Yeah, we are literally live right now, Cam. So.
Oh no!
Whoops. All right. Cool. So we'll just we can hit record on our side on Audacity, and then we'll do the clap thing. We'll do the clap thing on the air. Perfect. And I'll try and edit it later. Sound good, man?
Sounds good. So I'm gonna start recording on my end. Should we do some clapping there, Chris?
Yep. Recording on my end as well.
Okay.
All right. So 1, 2, 3, clap, clap, clap. Sound good?
Yep.
All right. 1, 2, 3. All right.
All right, baby boys. Hope you liked that theme song by the incomparable Christopher Yee. Great YouTube name, Chris. I'm sure you've seen the video.
The what video?
Yee?
Yee?
You don't know about Yee?
No. I mean,
It's like this 13-second long, very famous internet video that I'm not going to describe at all, and I'm just going to send to you after this. It's huge.
is it spelled
I mean,
the same way as my
literally.
last name, like Y-I?
No. It's spelled Yee.
Okay. Yeah.
Let's see. The original Yee video has 77 million views.
Oh, we're coming up close on that. Yeah.
Yeah. I'm really surprised that's not a thing for you. Also, this is probably terrible. I should probably turn off the fan in my living room.
I don't think I hear it. All right. Anyway, my name is Chris Yee, as Cam alluded to.
And this is your boy Friedman Freese. Just kidding. It's Campbell D'Souza, and we'll get into that.
All right, so this is we'll call this proper episode 1 of CNC Board Game Factory, because last week we did our kind of inaugural thing. We introduced like our thoughts on and our very, very unsuccessful history of board game design. And if you haven't listened to it, it's fun. I think it's genuinely funny. Our ideas for initial games are just absolutely terrible, and so I think we've come a long way in 8 years.
You can speak for yourself. Because I think that I would play the idea that I came up with. I don't know if I'd like it, but I would play it. I would play yours too, though. That would be sick.
Oh yeah, for sure.
So let's maybe take a couple seconds to get into what we're doing here, and I'll let you do this. You're the one with the pipes. You're the one with the incredible, just beautiful way of describing things. and I'm just basically flapping in the wind over here.
Wait, so what is it that you want me to describe then?
Our podcast.
Oh, okay. What are we doing as a podcast in
Yeah,
general?
this is. I mean, we made our mission statement, but let's sum it up. This is episode 1, baby.
Yeah, so episode 1, so yeah, episode 0 was like our initial stuff. We made some initial pitches, which maybe this is what you're referencing, that you would totally play the games that we pitched.
Yeah.
We threw out 2 ideas. One was Rocky Road, tabletop mini golf, and then the other one was Fire Hose Ferries. And so what we're going to do is we're going to be pitching an episode. Each of us will be pitching one game each episode, and for a few episodes we'll go through and come up with some ideas, and then we're going to pick one, and we're going to actually try and design and develop it and make it something kind of playable. And so we want to take a few minutes and follow up on some of the things we've discussed before, like prior pitches, and if we had ideas on them. And then we want to go into whatever this week's pitches are, which I'm excited to see what they are. And then at the end we'll do some wrap up, of course. Is that adequate, Cam? Do you have anything to add to that?
Nope, completely beautiful. Couldn't have done better myself, and that's why I asked you to do it, Chris Yee.
Thank you. Thank you for your utmost confidence in me, as I clearly have no confidence in myself.
Well, that's iron sharpens iron. And then, what they also say is that the blind man can lead the blind man. No pits involved.
Yeah. I've never heard that
check it
story
out.
ending badly. Continue.
So let's maybe take a couple seconds to talk about our pitches from last episode 0 of CNC Board Game Factory. Chris dropped in a pretty sick concept for and correct me if I'm wrong, but this is how we know our pitches are sticking. You can describe mine and I'll describe yours.
Excellent.
Chris wanted to make probably a pretty expensive tabletop miniature golf simulator.
Mm-hmm.
And the object of the game would be to play veritable mini golf horse by taking a few moments to use the components you have within the game to create a mini golf hole that is designed to be made in one shot using like a spring-loaded putter and a ball that has enough weight to be able to do a loop-de-loop if that's what's important. And that's the concept. So there would be little, like, I would take it there's probably a windmill in there, and there's probably little banks and bounces. We never talked. Is it going to be on turf, or is it going to be on like rough plastic, or what's the deal?
Yeah, see, that would be a development decision. It would be cute to have little turf, and maybe that would even help smooth out the modular edges, right? If you're going to be able to...
I think that would also be like necessary, because like if you have this thing on plastic, it'd be very little friction.
Right. Yeah. So it needs something to kind of stick to and roll to. Like the ball would need something to stick to and roll to.
Mm-hmm. And if it had like bumpers, like if it had like little like rumble strips inside the like on the plastic, I think that would make it really inaccurate.
Right. Yeah. So I mean, turf might, because if you have to like Lego piece it together, modular, make the course. Is that what you're saying? Maybe the turf would help smooth that out a little bit.
I think so. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. So that was my my idea that I'm completely unqualified for, because I'm not a modeler nor a physicist nor really that experienced with any dexterity game design whatsoever. But that's not going to stop us here at CNC Board Game Factory.
Yeah. We're experts, so we can do this.
Now, Cam.
Go ahead.
Oh, I was going to jump into yours. Do you have something else to say about my infinite wisdom?
You told me before we started recording that you had some additional thoughts on Rocky Road mini golf.
No, I had additional thoughts on your game, actually, that I'd like to talk about.
Oh, okay. Well, see, like I said, I did have some additional thoughts on yours, because I think we didn't even talk about the turf, and I think that's something we're going to need to come back to if we decide to make that game, which I'm pretty sure we would need to kickstart like multiple hundreds of thousands of dollars to do. But that shouldn't let us stop. That should not stop us from putting out the best possible board game we can put out. So if that's what we end up doing, we're just gonna have to go for the gusto.
I mean, and that's the thing, is that like tabletop gaming can be so many different things. It could be a tabletop RPG, it could be a board game, it could be a dry stuffy Euro, it could be a bluffing game, it could be a Fireball Island. You know what I mean? Those boys over at Restoration Games came up with a great idea to like let's make Restoration Island, Fireball Island again, and people would look at it and say, why?
See there, so there you go. This is an idea. Rocky Road mini golf. Rocky Road tabletop mini golf, the Euro game, is a tile placement game, where you place tiles to make a mini golf course. But you also have to use workers to collect wood and turf, to be able to build the pieces. But then also you have to collect snow cones and popcorn and pretzels to feed your workers at the end of every round.
Here's your free pretzel rations. Go back to work.
Yep. It'd be kind of like Dinosaur Island meets Patchwork meets I don't know, some other game.
Right.
Mini golf.
Yeah, we'll make a whole Rocky Road franchise, essentially. We'll make the action-packed, dexterity-fun mini golf game, and we'll make the dry stuffy Euro with dudes with floppy hats, because they're mini golf hats. Like golf
They're
hats.
mini golf hats. And then we do the tabletop RPG. And then we do the LARP, where we just build a mini golf course.
I've always wanted to... we discussed trying to make this episode a little bit more focused, and clearly that's not going to happen. My dream has always been to have a bunch of friends move into the same neighborhood, and just basically each of our backyards would be one course of one hole of a mini golf course, and so there'd just be like 18 neighbors all like...
So you have 17 friends who, although in Iowa that could work because, once you get out of the city, land gets pretty cheap. But I'm guessing that's the same way in the desert. Maybe I'm wrong.
Vegas is pricey, but I mean, and the suburbs, the further out you get, we're pretty restricted by the fact that there's mountain edges around. So
yeah.
You
may have to move to like Arizona, New Mexico.
The bustling rainforest of Arizona, is that what you're suggesting?
Well, I'm just saying that there's a lot of land there. I don't know what they're using it for, because I've driven through Arizona, and there's a lot of times where I'm like 100 miles from anything.
Yeah, that's pretty accurate.
But you could easily build a mini golf course neighborhood out there, is what I think.
Yeah. Basically, I realized that this is essentially... I'm describing a bougie neighborhood. Like in Las Vegas, they have tons of like fancy neighborhoods built on golf courses, but I want it to be a mini golf course.
Well, yeah, and you could do that. So the thing is, you're just going to have to get about 1/5 as rich as the people who have their home on a golf course. So like you need you and 17 other friends who are a modicum of rich. Did I pronounce that word right?
I believe so, yes.
Have a modicum of wealth.
Yeah.
Yeah. So there we go. So that's Rocky Road mini golf, tabletop mini golf. So on to Fire Hose Ferries.
So I'm going to describe Cam's pitch from last week, which, so by the way, both of us literally came up with these pitches on the spot, like with zero prior planning. I have, for my pitch this time, this much planning, which is...
I have about that much planning also, so
Yeah.
we're on the same page. So perfect. So I think we're increasing this at a good rate.
Exactly. I didn't want to jump into a game that I have like most ideas for. I wanted to bounce ideas off of Cam and see what we come up with. But
Yeah.
so Fire Hose Ferries, if you didn't catch last week's episode, is an exciting game of running around a map. But the thing is that you are limited by the length of your fire hose. You're trying to go and catch fairies, the crystal fairies, that will provide mana to your city, your village, and protect you. That's the backstory. You need to catch crystal fairies.
Your mushroom village. It's a mushroom village.
Okay, yeah.
Because you're little guys.
Your little dwarves or something like that. But
Yeah.
anachronistically, you have fire hoses. Magical fire hoses that you can run around and just spray and blast other players as well. So it's a little bit of a fun run around, collect stuff, but also potentially, blast your friends and whatnot, get them away from fairies and stuff. So you run around and we decided that it would end up being a tile laying game where say you have 6 tiles that you can lay out, boop, 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 right angles and straight lines as your length of fire hose. You can collect...
and you go around like trees and stuff.
Yeah, so there's obstacles that you have to move around, and then, and then you will collect fairies. That is going to be your main way of getting points, but you can also earn points very likely by blasting other players off the map. If you can blast them completely out of the forest, then you will also earn some points from that system. And there's a magical wizard that you can go to who will magically increase the length of your fire hose.
Yeah, that's what it is. And I think his name is. Didn't I come up with a name for him?
I don't
Uh,
remember.
yeah. Anyway, you did a pretty good. I mean, I think that's exactly what we're talking about. Oh, one thing is, it's not player elimination though. If you get blasted out of the forest,
You
you just come
respawn.
on back.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, it's not a respawn. You just get blasted out of the forest. But you can plan like since you're like out of the forest, you can like go. It's easier for you to go around like the side and come in from a different angle.
Yeah. Yeah.
I want people to think that you're dying. You're just getting hit with a fire hose.
Uh, so
It's not like you're sending a new Smurf in. Well, maybe you are sending a new Smurf in because the other one's like dazed. But
okay. So yeah, so I've had some thoughts on this because I think that this is a really clever, like funny idea. So okay, really quick though, you call yourself Freedom and Freeze, Campbell Freedom and Freeze D'Souza.
because I thought when I was driving down the road the other day, and I was like, man, that idea I came up with sure sounds like a Friedman Freeze game, and it actually starts with two Fs, like all of his games do in English. Well, no, they all do in German, but a lot of them do in English as well.
Yeah, I mean
So yeah,
they go out of their way to try and make it work, like fast sloths.
yeah, but what's the German word for sloth?
Who knows? Yeah, I've not looked it up actually in German, but there's sometimes you look at a Freedom and Freeze title and you're like, that's definitely a stretch just to make it start with F. But
Yeah,
Fire Hose Fairies is not a stretch because that is literally what the game is about.
what you're doing? Yeah,
So here's a few thoughts that I had on it, right? Because the initial
right.
idea was blast people off the map, go and collect fairies. You talked briefly. You mentioned maybe there's like a like an action allowance system. I should have clarified that. So say you have 4 actions on your turn that you can use, much like Pandemic. You can move, you can shoot, you can swipe with your net, and
Right.
I think that it should be. I think that you mentioned at one point, like maybe it takes an action to switch between your fire hose and your net, and probably for game brevity's sake and everything, probably just you can use whichever action immediately.
Yeah, and
Maybe
then
you're
like because then you have like little meeples, so you have to like move the arm down, or like we don't want to get into doing that kind of stuff. So you're probably right.
yeah. The other thought that I had was okay. So you blast players off the map. I think that's one way to get points. Collecting fairies would be another way to get points.
Ooh, sorry, really quick. I don't mean to interrupt, but what if you did an adrenaline-esque system where on your turn you just did a flow chart where it's like I can move and shoot and swipe, or I can move twice and shoot twice, or I can move 3 times and swipe once, or something like that.
Hmm.
Um, that way, instead of having to like do an action allowance system, you just have like 4 things to choose from, but they're the same like 3 actions in just a different configuration.
Okay. Okay. So that way it limits it, because I see the benefit of that being that it limits the player who says, "Well, if I do A, then C, then D, then B," versus if I
We're trying to avoid analysis paralysis here, and I think that would help.
because this is a quick-paced game, and
Yeah.
like you mentioned, Freedom and Freeze. I think the game that came to my mind was Fearsome Floors by him, which there's a monster on one side of this room, and you have to run away from it using basically like a checkers type system. It's a very very simple game, but the monster can come up and he can eat one of your people, and you have
Oh
like
no.
4 discs to move and run over to the exit, and so it's a very fast-paced, simple game. It's not, you know what I mean? No one is sitting there going, what do I do? I have to analyze every possibility this turn. You just kind of play, and it's silly, and it's not like an amazing game per se, but it's fun. And I think that would
Well,
be the point of
that's
this.
how Fire Hose Fairies will be different. Is it will be an amazing game. Okay, sorry, I completely interrupted you. I know you were going on a different track there. Was there something else?
Yes.
Okay.
Point scoring. I think one of the hard things with a game like this is making an interesting point scoring system. So collecting fairies is the main way to get points, say, right, which is totally fine. You get 3 points per fairy that you catch or something like that. You get 5 points if you blast an opponent off of the map out of the forest. There's something to incentivize a little bit of that interplay.
Yeah, yeah. Oh, 100%.
But I was thinking, what might be an interesting element to the game would be if there was a slight bit of cooperation or positive interaction. So if you used your fire hose to blast a fairy into an opponent and they capture it, they get the 3 points for capturing a fairy. But let's say that the first one that you do, you score 1 point, or you get a friendship token, right? And if you have
Ooh.
one friendship token at the end of the game, that's worth, that number squared or something like that, right? And so it becomes a little bit of this push your luck type thing where you're like, okay, I want to start spraying more fairies into other players.
Because if you can get 4 fairies into other players, then all of a sudden you doing that is worth more than catching 4 fairies.
Exactly.
Mm-hmm.
So I think
And if you do 3, it's worth getting 3. So it's the same thing. But everybody else is getting points too. But once you've done 4, then you've actually made more than the other people have made by you doing that for them.
And it doesn't matter, especially if you're playing, say, a 4-player game. But in a 2-player game, it becomes less relevant, right? Because if you're blasting fairies into another player, it's the same player. They keep getting points. But in a 4-player game, if you are able to blast a fairy into each of the other opponents, you're giving each player 3 points. You're getting 9, right? So you're coming out quite advantageously in that situation. You're netting 6 points over the other players.
But that might take you 3 turns to do. Each time you do that, you're using one of your turns, but they still get their turn. So it's I don't know. It would definitely. I think it's a really great concept, and you could even play around with other ways to reward players for doing that kind of stuff.
Mm-hmm.
So I think that's great. I think let's table Firehose Fairies. Put a question mark on. Well, no, I don't think we put a question mark. I think we put a question mark on how do we utilize spraying fairies into other players, because I think we definitely have that aspect in the game.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. So great. Well, that's Firehose Fairies. That's Rocky Road Mini Golf, and I kind of was hoping we'd be about 15 minutes, and we're only at 19 right now. So
hey,
we're doing pretty good. We're ahead of. Well, I mean, we're behind schedule, but we're ahead of our schedule, like our realistic schedule. You know what I'm saying? Yeah. So today is a day of pitches, and we're going to be pitching each other a game, and I think maybe we should start a CNC board game factory tradition of flipping a coin to see who pitches first.
Do you have a coin? I don't.
I do have a coin, but I'm gonna have to go get it. I don't know what you're doing without coins, but like.
Well, I just mean it's like it's over there. It's far away.
Yeah, well, I got one right over here. 1 second.
All right, perfect. I'll just do the little improv thing, things that make you go Oh, that's right. I have to mention that we should do a segment. Okay, so that's right. Paul, a listener of us, or at least a responder to when we put up an announcement on Twitter, said we should make sure to have an entire segment called "Things That Make You Go
Oh, yeah, okay. That's probably like something we should do at the beginning of the podcast, and not at the end of the podcast. So
Yeah,
why don't we go with that first?
Yeah, things that make you go So it maybe so last week we did like a mechanism that jumps out to us or something like that, or a game that was impressive in some way or other. So is there anything that makes you go right now?
Why don't you start?
Okay, I'll go ahead and I'll start. Pardon me. I'll start with a mechanism that I'm really, really digging right now is dice drafting. I think that so I just taught Wendy La Granja last night after we played it live on our streams, and I've been playing a lot of games of it. And I just think that dice drafting is a really pleasantly interactive type of mechanism where there's I love input randomness is what it's called in game design theory or whatever. For example, you roll some dice and then you have to choose what to do with those dice values rather than choosing an action and then rolling dice to see the outcome of it. That's what people would call, say, output randomness. I like the idea of you go into a round saying, I'd like to do actions 1 and 6, and no 1s nor 6s are rolled in that round. And you say, okay, well, what do I do with 2 through 5? So there's that randomness that that upsets the balance. It upsets like the purity of the strategy that you're going for, but it gives you that randomness up front so you can decide how to react to it. And so I tend to really like that. I've been pondering that thing in the old noggin a lot lately.
Yeah, I like. It's weird how like dice drafting interacts with larger and smaller groups of players too. Because like, I would imagine that I wouldn't be so jazzed on Sagrada at a 2-player count. I just feel like so often it could just totally go like, because of the secret scoring in that game. Like you could be yellow, I could be blue, and then all of the dice in a 2-player game could be yellow. You know what I mean?
Yeah. Yeah.
Um, So that's a thing where like dice drafting, like not optimal, but for the purposes of the game, it's great, and I would want to play Sagrada at 3 or 4 players anyway. But I like the way that the dice drafting works in La Granja and in Grand Austria Hotel at 2 players,
Hmm.
because in Grand Austria Hotel, enough dice are rolled where going second usually isn't lousy, and you do like a snake draft,
Hmm.
and then also, no matter what player count you're at, well, 3 might. Hang on. How many rounds is. Oh, no. Chris, did you just disappear?
Oh no, what happened? An unhandled exception occurred. Please abort to terminate the program.
Oh, no.
Can you hear me, Cam?
Well, I can hear you fine. Can you not hear me?
What program messed up? Are we live on YouTube or not?
Hang on. I'm going to close this here and turn on the YouTube.
Well, for sure, Audacity just died on me. So, what we're going to have to do for this episode, Cam, is we'll just have to do the audio straight from this video and just put that on the internet.
I guess that's what's up. Can you still hear me, though?
I can still hear you and see you.
Oh, great. Yeah, and I'm watching the stream right now, and I can still see both of us on the stream and hear both of us on the stream. So...
Okay, cool. Well, sorry about then complete failure of technology on my side, but
it's good that this is episode 1, because if this were episode 1,000,000, we would have no excuse.
yeah, but exactly. So I mean, this is still better than the Phantom Menace, arguably.
Yeah. All right, so I'm going to flip a coin here. Oh, wait, I still need to think of something that makes you go, all right, here's a thing that makes me go, Exposition in board games. In other words, long blocks of text. I've talked about quite a few times on the Board Boys podcast, and I think you've heard my thoughts about it too, Chris.
Yeah, for sure.
I feel like they can be used to great responsibility and making a game more exciting. And I think that they can personally make me, and I'm not saying everybody, but I'm part of everybody, so I figure that there's at least... I would say that even if I'm fringe, probably 10% of people feel the same way as me. A bunch of text can just make me check out of a game completely, especially the more games I play that have a ton of text in them.
Yes.
And I think part of it is a lot of times board games that have like adventure modes are either... board games that have like adventures to them, like just take themselves too seriously maybe, and the writing is really just kind of boring.
Mm-hmm.
Or maybe it's really samey, like I couldn't tell you whether something was written on a Betrayal at House on the Hill card, or if it was written on an Arkham Horror card, or something like that. But I've been chewing into what it is that like jazzed me so much about Forgotten Waters, and I think that I would play that game more and more times just to hear what's on the cards. And I think that it's just a double-edged sword. The writing is really interesting.
Mm-hmm.
It doesn't. I don't think I care that it was funny, although that was a boost because it kept me on the edge of my seat, right? But I think that you can I think it can be really detrimental or really supplemental to a game to have bad writing and or good writing. I
Yeah.
don't know.
Yeah. Things that make us go, All right, so you got your coin there. We're gonna flip to see
All right.
in
So
in in
and you
classic
can't see, or can
baseball
you still see
tradition.
me?
Yeah, I can still
Can you
see
still?
you.
Okay, so call it in the air right there.
Heads.
Uh, okay, so it is heads. Do you want to go first or second today?
Let's see. I'm gonna go first. I'm gonna go first.
Okay.
Yeah, because I like my idea, but I'm always curious to see what's going on in the old Cam noggin.
Oh man, same dude. Uh,
You want to see what's going on in your own head?
yeah, because I don't always have access to that. Um, yeah, let's hear about your board game, my dude.
All right, so my pitch is this. This is a little bit unusual because I am a stuffy, dry Euro game player. Some of my favorites are,
Can we address this really quick?
yeah,
I was thinking the same thing. Because like a lot of the ideas I've come up with, even though I really love Euro games, and maybe you feel the same way, are like on the other end of the spectrum. Like that Firehose Fairies thing, not very Euro, right? And a lot of the games I've thought of over, the years have been like kind of more American style. Here's the thing though. I play a type of music that some people think is good when I play and write music, but I don't sound anything like my favorite bands.
okay,
Everybody's got their own brand, so I don't think you need to put yourself in the box of like, am I making a type of game that is my favorite type of game?
right.
I think you create what you create, and it's just fine if your favorite stuff is other kinds of stuff. And it might even mean you're more creative because now you're not being derivative of some of the favorite things of yours, right?
Well, and there's so much value in creating something in a field or in a space that's maybe not necessarily your favorite, but making something in that style that you would like and that you would enjoy playing.
Yes. So, spoiler, my game that I'm going to suggest today is probably quite American sounding. But
Okay.
back to you. I'm sorry for interrupting, which I want to do, but I think you were about to say that this game isn't very Euro-y.
Yeah, I enjoy my big box, stuffy, dry, mathematical, economic, terraforming Marsy, Brass Birmingham type Euros and stuff. Those are some of my favorite. Get Teotihuacan and Zolkin, like a lot of this stuff. I haven't really come up with very many good worker placement ideas. I have a few cooking in my journal, and so my journal here is, I mean, this thing is chock full of just different ideas and whatnot. Some of them are very full, and some of them are this long. And so, this 5-line description here is the starting point of something interesting, I think. I love in a game when players are creating endgame scoring conditions. And so instead of just saying at the end of the game, every 3 gold is worth 1 point. At the end of the game, every turnip is worth 2 points, right? In Terraforming Mars, in particular, you fund these awards, you create the end game scoring condition bonuses, which I think is brilliant. So I was noodling with this idea of how do you create that. And I was talking with my wife Wendy, who co-hosts Meeple Overboard,
What's up,
our podcast together.
Wendy? What's up, Meeple Overboard?
Shout out
Sorry.
to myself. And so we thought of this card game essentially. This started off as a mechanism within a bigger game, but here's the game. You're dealt a hand of 7 cards. They are of different types. We'll just call them fruits for right now, because theme doesn't matter. This is a small little card game.
Okay.
So you're dealt 7 cards into your hand. You have 3 apples, 2 kiwis, and an orange. Now, in the middle of the table, there's different scoring conditions. Right at the end of the round, there's pineapples. Or sorry, what fruits did I even say? There's apples,
You
oranges.
did apples, kiwis. I don't know why you're using kiwis if you only got to pick 7 fruits. Seems a little crazy to me.
But let's just for easiness, because I was joking around saying kumquat as my example last night,
Oh, yeah.
and I was like, this is getting tiresome to say kumquat. So apples, oranges, watermelon, and kiwi. Let's say those are the 4 fruits that this deck
Okay.
of cards is comprised of. You have a hand of 7 cards, and on your turn, you have to lay down one of those cards from your hand face down into one of those 4 piles. You're creating how many points each one of those fruits is going to be worth at the end of your hand, at the end of this round, right? So player 1 sticks a card face down under apples. If that face down card is at the end of the round revealed to be an apple, apples are worth an additional 3 points each at the end of the hand. If the card that is face down is any other fruit, it is only worth 1 point. So there is this kind of bluffing aspect of players will go around in a circle, placing as many cards one at a time out under the different types of fruits as they want until they pass, until everybody passes in succession. And you're basically creating how many points the remaining cards in your hand are going to be at the end of the round. So if you and I are playing, you and I stuck 3 different cards underneath apples, 1 card under kiwi, and 1 card under watermelon. So I'll have a few cards in hand, you have a few cards left in hand, and then we reveal what they are, and then we reveal those end game scoring conditions, or the end of round scoring. And so basically, apples are worth X number of points, watermelon are worth X number of points, oranges are worth X number of points, and we score that up. And then you pass dealer to the next player. People start playing another round, and you score that up, pass the dealer to another, score out that round, and you just play until some predetermined score, or you play X number of rounds, and then you see who's got the most score at the end of, say, 7 hands or whatever it is.
Okay, I'd like to clarify something. So
Yeah, please.
When I put an apple underneath the apple slot, that makes the apples worth 3 points.
Yep.
And let's say I have 2 apples in my hand. Does one of the card have 1 apple on it and another card has 2 apples, or is every apple the same?
That's a good question. I was thinking every card is the same. Everything is just one of that fruit.
And then if I put something underneath that doesn't belong to that family, what happens to that family?
So that family is now worth 1 more point instead of 3 more points each.
Let me posit 2 thoughts on the way this game works.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, and I'm sorry, I'm looking at you on my phone here and not at my camera, so it looks like I keep looking down, and I got these really tiny, beady little eyes, so it looks like I'm like sanctimoniously talking to you. But what if, and just hear me out, what if each card family had quite a few 1s, a couple 2s, and a 3, and any card you tuck under adds the value to that fruit by the amount that's on it, and any card that goes underneath that isn't that fruit decreases the value by the amount that's on it.
Mm-hmm.
But when you score, each of your cards is just worth 1.
Okay.
So you have like a 3 banana, but you have no bananas in your hand, and you have no oranges in your hand. So you might stick the 3 banana under the oranges
to decrease the value of the oranges.
And since you don't want to get like extra points for bananas. And then there's a little bit more what's going on up in there.
That's a possibility, yeah. So I didn't even think about changing the value of the number on the fruit card. So you're saying that would only apply to the score modifying in the middle of the table.
Yeah, it would still, your card's still worth 1 of each fruit when you're multiplying the. Right? Did I lose you there, vocal wise?
No, I can hear you. Can you hear me?
Okay, sorry. Yeah, I can hear you.
Okay, sweet.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, and maybe you have like, if you want to do 4 fruits or 5 fruits in a hand, you have enough of each card, like each fruit family of fruits, where like you're not going to see probably all of the 3s in one hand of the round. You're going to see a few 2s, and most of them are going to be 1s. That's my first thought on the game. My second thought of the game is, what if you made it so the game could be played with some degree of like stuff changing up. What if each deck had, let's say, let's say you have apples, and the apple deck has, like, say each deck has 15 cards in it, and most of, like, the standard deviation, generally speaking, is like apples have like 7 1s, or like 8 1s, 9 1s, 4 2s. So that's 13 cards, a 3, and then the apple has one extra card in its deck that is just like a modifier that has like some special thing that you're not going to have if you're not playing with apples. And, then you have the grapefruit cards, and maybe, the grapefruits have a few more 2s, but they don't have any modifying cards that do something crazy. And maybe the bananas are all 1s, but they all have, something that affects something. So you have like these. I'm not a big Smash Up fan, but you have these Smash Up type decks, or like Elysium, where you have maybe 10 fruits in the game box, but you play with 4 of them, and you create these different play experiences every time.
I like that because it reminds me of two of my favorite games, which are Ethnos and Sushi Go Party.
Yeah, 100%.
And this is, and as you can tell from the description of this game, this is a lighter card game, in the family of some of those great card games. Ethnos is an area control game, but it's all driven by the cards. Sushi Go Party is just a brilliant piece of work. It's so fascinating that you can play Sushi Go, but you swap out what the different types of cards are available in it. That way, every time you play the game, it leads to increased replayability, a little bit of difference, but the core mechanisms are still the same. And I think that also the core of it remains so similar, so that you can still develop a relevant meta between the players. If you're playing this with the same 3 other people at your table, if you're playing this with mom and dad and your brother or your sister, you know what I mean? Like, oh, dad always does this thing. He's always putting extra cards under this. You know what I mean? Like,
Yeah.
you learn to read the people at the table, changing a little bit of the distribution of the cards, and maybe 1 or 2 modifier cards still allows for that, but also allows for that gamification of, ooh, bananas are going to behave differently than strawberries this game.
Yeah. So like maybe strawberries have 5 1s, 5 2s, 5 3s. Bananas are all the same card, but all bananas count as -2 if they're detracting from a fruit, and count as 1 if they're boosting a fruit. But then you get to multiply all your bananas. You get to double the value of all your bananas that you keep in your hand or something. Like, uh, not to make anything like too much more complicated, but I would say you would still want the game to run almost exactly the same, and probably, uh, if you're going to edit the rules up, make sure it's in line, so like they play well together. You have to play test more, right? But
Yeah,
um,
exactly. You don't want to have
but I
like a
think,
broken combo, and everyone's like, "Let's
yeah,
play strawberry, banana, kiwi, and lime," because that sounds like a fun combo, and
and
it's
it's like,
just
no, last time we wanted to kill each other. But I mean, the thing is, if you play strawberry, banana, kiwi, lime, and it's weird, it's still weird for everybody. It's not like each person gets their one deck and one's better than the other. So that's the nice thing you have about like a game that is like a card game. It's still balanced unto itself, no matter what cards you throw in there, as long as everybody has the same chance of getting the same cards.
yeah, yeah. This is fun. I really like this idea of the modularity, and it also just selfishly from the designer perspective, designers. We talked about this in episode 0, right? You always want to throw more into a game than is reasonable and or logical. And so increasing modularity like this allows you to say like, what about cards that do this? What about cards that do this? What about cards that do that?
Hmm.
And you just say pick 4 or 5 at a time. Like that's it.
Yeah, yeah, and I think you could do, like, you just say you just play with, you probably don't play it 2 players, but you just play with one fruit family for each person playing, or maybe you always play with 4 or 5 fruit families, and you get less cards if you play with more people. And uh, I don't know, I think it could be it could be a very good heads up game, kind of a la Arbitorium, um, where you kind of know what's in the deck, and so you're you have kind of a Lost Cities or Arboretum sort of thing going on where, it's a kind of a mind game.
Mm-hmm.
And maybe you only play with 2 fruit or 3 fruits, and you'd, deal out most of the cards or something. I don't know. I think it's a great idea, Chris. I think that we could find ourselves making whatever the name of this game is.
Yeah, I mean, Fantastic Fruits.
Well, this isn't a Friedman Freeze game, though.
Well, he made Fabled Fruit, actually. So.
No, we're gonna put this one in a green box too.
I mean, we could call it fruit salad, right? Like that's a healthy chopping up, mixing together of fruits. That's kind of what's going on here. You're making a fruit salad.
Is that sort of too on the nose, though?
I mean, a game called Point Salad exists.
And it's a card game about vegetable cards.
Yeah. So I mean, hey, I mean, maybe Game Right wants to continue their line of food-based little card games.
You know what? Maybe.
Emma Larkins, who does the Ludology podcast, just came out with Abandon All Artichokes. And
ooh.
Yeah, it's a funny little like deck building / just destroy the artichokes game. It's pretty funny. So Eric Yurko at What's Eric Playing? He said, yeah, it's like, it's a really great game. I assumed that the title Yeet All Yams was already taken.
Perfect. But the thing is, that's not that's not YYY. You would have to do Yeet Your Yams.
Yeet your lamb. Yeet your lambs. Yeet your yams. Yes.
Yeah. Or toss the turnips. Or destroy the... What vegetable starts with D?
I mean, durian is a fruit. That's...
Yeah, but weren't we talking about vegetables?
We were. So anyway, yeah. Tentative title: fruit salad. Unless you can think of something better for this.
I think it could be better than fruit salad, but let's call it fruit salad for now.
Okay. But yeah, so that's the thing. Like, I enjoy these little card games as well. Jaipur and Lost Cities, like those types of game. Mandala. There's something that feels fantastic about being dealt a hand of cards and saying, work with this. There's no drafting. Mm-hmm. There's no, not multi-use cards. It's just, here's a hand of cards, deal with it, play a quick round. Dealer passes to the left, deal out a new hand, play with this. And so there's something attractive about designing in that space, I think.
There's also something attractive for us first-time board game designers about being able to make a game that we can make really cheap. And we could sell it really cheap, meaning more people are willing to buy it.
Right, $10-15 or something for a game.
Exactly.
$20,
yeah.
Whatever.
If we have 10 fruits at 15 cards, we got 150 cards. So, well, maybe we don't even have 15 card decks, you know what I mean?
Yep.
Maybe the game's 104 cards. Maybe we get Bicycle to make it for us, and they make 54 cards in a deck or whatever, and then we just get the rules printed on a couple cards. Boom, baby! We're making 2 decks, sell it for $10, make it for $6 or whatever.
Well, you could sell them as 52 deck packs. You can sell them as 52 deck packs, and you have pack 1 and pack 2.
The Juicer pack.
Yes. Yeah, exactly.
Yep.
Right. Here's the advanced fruit options. Do you want to buy? You want more variety in your fruit salad game or whatever.
Well, here's the thing. Maybe you get the fruit salad, which is like apples, grapes, kiwis, pineapples, grapefruit, and then you have the other. So it's like Railroad Ink, where it's like you get a blue one or a red. The other one's fruit smoothie, and it's like strawberries, bananas, blueberries, all the stuff you throw in a smoothie, and then you can mash the two together if you want to do even wilder combinations.
This idea is bananas.
Yeah.
BLUEBERRYS.
Yeah, blueberries.
Okay. So
okay.
Yeah.
Well, I think
salad,
that's
pack
the way.
1 and pack 2.
And if we sell, so here's the thing. This is episode 1, but I know that this game would be very successful, so that we could get as the 2-man design house. 3-person design house because we would need to get we need to be a 4-person company because I don't know anything about computers and I don't know anything about art. But I think we got everything else covered.
Our game is just let's just go the Terraforming Mars route where we'll go through and get as many free stock photos of fruit as we can.
By the way, I love Terraforming Mars's art. I only have one super gripe about Terraforming Mars. It's one of my favorite games. You know this. The card stock in that game is terrible.
100%.
Like the actual card, and I play it so much, so I had to sleeve everything, but I don't like playing it sleeved. And I mean, I just wish I could have paid. I know the game's already the same price as Charterstone, you know, which has incredible quality. Hey, what's up, Jamie? What's up, Stronghold too? Love both your companies. Love all you guys. Love both those games. I feel like there could have been better cards in there. But the art I love, and nobody can tell me nothing about that.
It's fun. It's fun. It's fun seeing like an actual picture of a dog, and then this like terribly rendered space station on clearly just the Grand Canyon turned kind of orange.
Oh, I love it, man. I can't get enough of the art in that game.
All right, Cam.
It's so good.
I think that fruit salad and the Juicer Pack fruit smoothie.
Put a bow on it. I think we could stop the pitching right now. We could just make that game. Great call, Chris.
All right.
All right.
Your idea,
so,
man. Let's hear it.
For my pitch, I'm going to get us into a little bit more. I was smack talking some aspects of adventure games. That was purposeful because I am going to pitch a competitive adventure game that I had an idea for a long time ago, but I wasn't in the headspace of what we can do with gaming now.
Yeah.
And so I think it's more relevant now than it was before. But we'll see. So let me just lay it on the table that unfortunately this pitch is probably going to require an app, but it's not going to require a smart app. It'll just require something along the lines of the Alchemist app, right? Where it's self-contained. You don't have to have a connection to the internet. But you probably would want the app to play unless, just like Alchemist, you would need a GM to, educate the game for all of the other people playing.
General Motors, yes, for those unfamiliar with the term.
Yes, a General Motors to do that.
Someone whose job is just to know the secret code and then be like, red is wrong.
Yeah, it's a little different than that, but there is that aspect to it. So what it is you are all like jungle exploring adventurers, right? And there's probably, let's just say that the game has a modular setup that when you hit the play new game, the app sets up for you. So like connect boards A and B, and then use C2 and then D, and then put board I up at the top,
Right.
However you do it, it's probably a hex based game. Okay. So everybody shows up at like the village on the coast, and everybody's going to trek into the jungle to find as many treasures and goodies and gems as possible, right? And the way the game is set up is on your turn, you make decisions on what you're going to do simultaneously with everybody. So like you are going to like program in what you're planning on doing, and maybe you do like 4 actions at a time, and you can like go further into the jungle. You can do actions when you're like in a village. You can like search an area, or you can like manipulate something, right? Keep it pretty simple.
Okay.
But like when you're in the village, you're going to look for like Carmen Sandiego-esque leads to like, hey, which direction is all the rich stuff at, right? And so the app will know like which way. Let's say there's like a big temple in every game, right? That has like the king money. Okay. So they could like get you towards that, or they could give you like a rumor that's like, oh, this place is over this way. So you have you get little information, and it's on an app, so you can like keep it secret, and you're allowed to share any information you want with anybody else, whether you're lying or telling the truth. And we can get into whether or not there's rules, around that. But it wouldn't be like app to app, because I don't want to make a complicated app here, right? I just want something that randomizes stuff, right? So you're
Yeah.
playing with there's no like story to each game. You're creating the story of each game. But then, okay, so the other things you can do in the village is you can like supply yourself, right? Because you need to have provisions when you're going to be in the jungle. You can use an action in the village to get like a guide who will help you move faster through the jungle. So that's the stuff you can do when you're in the village. You can move through like these hexes. Then you can also search an area. And like when you search an area, you'll put like a hex into the map, and it'll tell you if you find anything there, right?
Okay.
And sometimes you'll find nothing. Sometimes you'll find clues that'll be like, there's a large treasure 3 hexes from this spot. And so now you know like the general area of something. The temple is this way. When you find the temple, there's also like a puzzle you have to solve to get in there. And you have to have like the 3 or 4 pieces of the puzzle and also like do a little figuring. Maybe it's like a mastermind. No, not a mastermind type thing, but like I don't know, some type of scrambling. Like you have to do a little bit of work and you have to do a little bit of searching. And if you search but are good at the work, you might be able to figure it out without having all the pieces. But it'd be like super obvious once you had all the pieces. And again, you can exchange information freely, whether or not you're telling the truth or lying. And so like if you get into the temple, then you can get like a huge treasure. Well, there's a timer on the game. It lasts a set amount of rounds. And basically at the end of the game, you tally up how much juice you have, and you probably get extra loot depending on like whether or not you made it back to the starting village to be to like your boat on time. And then whoever has the most cash, and artifacts and stuff at the end of the game wins. Side thing is there's probably a little bit of take that in the game, in the form of being able to do actions that hamper other players but don't like screw them over super bad. In other words, like you might be able to take an action that would slow down all of the players for a turn, like so they move at half speed or something. Like they have to use 2 actions to move a hex, or if they have a guide, they only move 1 hex. Or since you're programming your actions, you could actually try to like end up on the same spot as somebody and like try to like steal something from them. But of course, it would be the kind of thing where you could very easily miss them because everybody's making their decisions at the same time. The game might have like a day and night system too. Not a day and night system like really major, but like you might have to take like, how like Fury of Dracula, you do things during the day and during the night. You may have to like take time to rest, and that would be the time when like somebody could exhaust themselves because they think somebody else is going to be sleeping in a spot to go like try to rifle through their stuff and take what they can get. But it would come at the detriment of like if you do that often, you're gonna get tired or be easy to catch or whatever. But that's my concept of the game. What the app does is it just like sets up where the clues and treasures are, and the information you get, and the randomness of the puzzle that game, and like how you set up the board. Everything else is like a social like like maybe there's like 10 treasures that you know about, and 9 of them, like maybe 3 of them are like worth 1,000, 5 of them are worth 2,000, a couple are worth 3,000, and then like if you get into the temple, it's worth like 6,000, and if you get back on time, it's worth like 2,000. So just we could play around with numbers, but you probably know how much loot there is, and like there's probably like statues, jewels, ziggurat, I don't know, like different things you can find. And so like you would know if you have some information regarding like the golden tiger mask, and if somebody's like, hey, I'm looking for information on the gold tiger mask, you could be like, oh, I have some information. Like, do you know anything about like this? And like, you could be as discreet as you wanted. You could like whisper, you could like show something. Um, and there might be rules about whether or not you could lie in that situation, or there might not be. Whichever, maybe there's two different modes. A mode could be like, beginner mode where you have to tell the truth, and expert mode where you could lie to each other. Which would probably, stunt not only that play for you, but all future plays. So you have to determine whether or not you want to lie every now and then.
Right,
So
because the people will be like, "Oh, I can't trust Josh when I need some information because he lied that one time 7 years
right,
ago."
yeah. So I don't know. Like I find that I tell the truth most of the time when I play. I think in a game when it's time, like when it's early in the game, you like don't expect people to lie to you. But like later in the game, alliances are way more tenuous, and like people tend to forgive each other for backstabbing them at the last moment of the game, much more than they forgive somebody for backstabbing them very early in a game, right?
Yeah.
So because like at the end of the game, you're like, oh man, that twist of the knife was brilliant. But early, it's just like, why would you lie to me about that? Like, so I know I've given you a really big overview of this game, and it's a lot larger than Fruit Smoothie. So I'm sorry, but I think this is like could be a really killer game. But it would take a lot more work, right?
Oh yeah, yeah. I mean, just in terms of like stuff and like what makes a map and what size and everything. What was the? I don't know if I didn't catch it. What was the programming mechanism? Was it cards? Was it like a dial board, kind of like in Lords of Zidit? Like, what were you thinking for that?
So what I'm thinking is you probably like probably the cheapest way to do it would be like you have a hand of cards, and you have like I don't know if it's like a Colt Express thing where you like I don't think you draw. I think the game would be more freeform than that because it could be really frustrating if you're like near the end of the game and all you have is move cards and you can't search. But I'm thinking like you probably program um, a certain number of moves, or maybe you just all program one move at a time. Like maybe you just have a set of like 5 cards.
Oh, and
Move,
everyone
yeah,
simultaneously would choose or something.
yeah, move, action, rest, search, uh, whatever. Uh, so because you'd be able to move, you'd be able to take an action if you were on a spot where you could interact with something. Um, there'd be search for like looking for treasure. There would be rest because you need to rest sometimes. And then there would maybe be like uh, one other thing, like play an action card, or I don't know, draw an action card, or I don't know. Even if there is that, maybe there's not action cards, or maybe a sabotage card where you give up your turn to like maybe if you have maybe like you reveal a sabotage card before you reveal a everybody else reveals their card, and you name out like an action, and like everybody who played that action can't do it, but you can only use your sabotage card like every other turn or something like that. So you can't like stun lock people into not finishing the game. And also, if you just sit there sabotaging a lot, you're never going to get anything.
You're never actively doing anything. Yeah.
Or maybe you can, I don't know, but that I haven't thought through, and at this point, I don't think that's super important. But I think you have a hand of cards, and like everybody, reveals their action at the same time. So and you could do a programming aspect to it where you have to think ahead, and then you already have your moves programmed, and if somebody does something you wanted to do, you're like, oops, so I got to do something else. But that could stink too, because like if you were trying to loot the same area as somebody else and they ended up there before you, then your search action is just dead. But maybe that's just something you have to deal with. I don't know.
Yeah, it depends on the amount of that I would put up with in a game is absolutely dependent on the overall length of the game. It doesn't
Yeah,
exactly sound like this is a short one, but it could be that it's actually in like smaller in scale than I think it is.
I don't. So I actually, so my original thought on it back in the day, it was going to be a very complex game with um, like this game could have like some variable player powers, but like they were like entirely different characters with different inventories, different abilities, different special things actions they could do. If this game had different like asymmetrical player powers, it would be like you move one extra space when moving in the jungle total, or you can do two actions in a village instead of one when you play the village action card. Like very, very small asymmetry. But my thoughts on the game were it would be probably an hour and a half.
Okay.
Um, and it would be like very much like going in, learning stuff, figuring the stuff out, looting stuff, and getting back out. So it would be longer in theory probably than a game of Clank, but it would be way shorter than like any of those big box adventure games.
Right. Then you're like Eldritch Horrors and like that type
Right,
of
right, right.
like globe-trotting adventuriness.
Yeah, the goal would be to be way shorter than that. And the nice thing about having an app is you wouldn't need much in terms of setup. Because my original idea for the game was that you like put everything face down, what's like at each location, and then you have like you go to the back of the book and there's like a chart that tells you where to put everything for randomization like 85. And I was like, this game could never get made.
No.
But with an app, you just like you could just hit board 6 spot. If it's on like a hex, you could be like board 6 spot 83. Like everything could have a 3-digit number that you just put into the system, and it's like you find this clue. And the clues are generally the same, but they lead you to different spots because of the way the board's set up. So,
because it would be all
I don't know.
randomized in the app and controlled, and the app would know which clues to give you to say,
Yeah,
hey, if you want to go to the Red Fire Temple
yeah,
or something on your, look at board
mhm,
C. It's going to be somewhere in board C.
yeah. So I'm thinking the game has like a bunch of smaller treasures where like when you get a clue, you just know the exact location you have to get there and search. And then they have a few medium treasures where there's like two probably clues that if you have both of the clues, it gives you the location. There's like one or two big treasures that have maybe 3 clues that would give you the exact location. But if you had 2, you could probably like take a chance. And then the location of the temple requires 1 clue, and you could probably solve how to get in there with 3 clues, but there's 4 clues total for it. And so maybe there's let's say there's 5 little treasures, that's 5 clues in the game. 3 medium treasures, that's 6 more clues. 1 large treasure, or maybe 2 large treasures, that's 6 more clues. The temple, that's 5 more clues. And so the
So
game,
22
the app
clues
is
total.
only about 22 clues total to find, and you find those in villages, and you find those like when you search an area that doesn't have something, it'll give you a location of a clue. I think so. Like every spot, like there's 20, like there's probably like 6 clues buried in the villages or so. Um, like maybe there's a, the game would do it so maybe there's like a set amount of villages on the board. So there's 4 villages, and there's 4 clues. There's a clue you can always get in each village,
Hmm.
including the beginning one. And then there's 18 other clues out there on the board, and if you go to a spot and search it and it's empty, it'll give you the location of the nearest clue. And
Oh,
if
okay.
you're equidistant from um, maybe 2 clues, because that could happen, it'll send you in the direction of whichever clue goes to the smaller treasure.
Okay. So
Um,
it's just like, oh, I search here because the clues that I got lead me, I think, to this area, and then you search there and it says, oh, you don't see anything, but you notice some footsteps going to the north from
well, no,
here.
it would tell you exactly where the next clue was, so that you don't have to waste a ton of time just searching crap.
Okay.
Um, so, like, say I may be 5 spaces away from the nearest clue, but I know exactly where it is, so my turns aren't in vain, because I don't want the game to be frustrating, right?
Yeah.
I want you to be able to get info. And then the reason I think you should be able to share info is because, like, if I get a clue to a treasure that's worth $2,000, but I'm looking for a treasure that's worth 5,000, somebody might be willing to trade me information on the 5,000 just to have the location of a 2,000, because I could be like, hey, this thing is actually really close to where you're at. I think I'm pretty close to this thing, and maybe you can even like exchange money. Um, but I think also, like, if you're programming turns, if you arrive at a treasure at the same time, you would split the value of the treasure.
Could be.
So
Okay. So that
yeah,
so that everyone's going simultaneously. There's not this turn based like
There's
Jonathan
no initiative,
goes.
and like so maybe one of the characters you can be is like kind of a sneaky dude, and if he gets at the treasure at the same time as somebody else, he gets all of it, or but I don't think there's like an initiative system.
Okay. Okay. This is interesting. So one of the thoughts that comes to my mind is have you played the game Risk Star Wars Edition?
No, but Rob has, and I think he and Bo really liked it. That's the new one, right? Or they just redid it, right?
Yeah, it came out
Where you're
like
working,
probably 3 or 4 years ago.
you're fighting like three separate battles, right?
Hmm.
And it's a two-player game. Yeah.
Yeah, and so it is like 5% of the game is Risk because you roll dice to determine
Hmm.
combat. But how it works is there's the three different stages of battle. So you have the main space battle. It's Return of the Jedi. You have the main space battle trying to blow up the Death Star. You have Luke and Vader Death Star a lightsaber battle on one side. On the other side is Han and Leia trying to blow up the shield generator so that space people can go in and blow up the Death Star. And what I really like about the activation system of that game is that each card has 2 to 3 different things you can choose to activate it. You have to program 3 cards in a row, and your top card will say either my A wing or sorry, either my Y wings or my B wings activate.
Ah,
My next
that's
card,
cool.
yeah, my next card says either Luke Skywalker will hit Vader with his lightsaber, or Y wings, or the Rebel Strike Squad will move towards the shield generator. And so you have these multi-use cards, but they're very straightforward. They do one of two or one of three things, and I like that because it's a softer form of programming where
Yeah, so you could program a few turns, but then if something bad happens to you, then you could pivot.
yeah, exactly, it leads for pivoting. And so I wonder if that would be good in a thing like this where I because yeah, at an hour and a half I would still hate it if I programmed 3 actions, move, take the treasure from a spot, and then my last action was move or something like that. But then on turn number one, someone was able to get ahead of me, or move, find treasure, but someone was able to get there really quick, get the treasure one turn ahead of me, and move out.
Yeah.
So yeah, I wonder. It does complicate obviously the design of it more, but I like being able to pivot within programming.
I don't think that's terrible though, and what you could do is since you have like 5 or 6 basic actions that everybody understands, you could make the characters a little more asymmetrical by giving them each their own deck that has like a different deviation of cards. So like maybe one of the characters has like a search on every single card, and maybe one of them has a move on every single card or most of their cards. So like this character is inherently a little bit better at pivoting if they want to move, but since you always get all of your cards back, you can always program to do the stuff you want. But if your plans change and you want to be mobile, good thing you're, Lucy Lockhart, who can whack through the jungle easier instead of, Snivelly Sam, who's better at like doing dastardly things. Uh, but everything's still available to you, a la, it'd be, I think, very similar to like a Colt Express action style system where there's 6 actions and they're all very straightforward and everybody has access to all of them.
Yeah, but I like that idea of then that allows for more asymmetry, so one person could have like move on almost every one of their cards, and then
Yeah.
other people have like punch or whatever some of your other
Hmm.
actions are across more of
Yeah.
their cards, stuff like that. Like that's a good thought.
And this game would be much less nasty than Colt Express. For the record, there'd be way less stealing, but it would be I think at this point I want to leave the option on the table. But my goal is to have, if this game were to get made, to be more strategic than complicated. You know what I mean?
Mhm.
um, and for the social component to matter, right? So what information you're willing to give up, what risks you're willing to take, have gravity, and if you luck out and find something great because you took that risk and you're a treasure hunter, it's not going to be easy for somebody just to come up next turn and be like, "Well, I wanted that, so it's mine now." I don't want to pass stuff on too much. Um,
Interesting. All right. All right.
yeah.
And I know my own biases. I would prefer if this were like a 1 hour game, but and it had a little bit less than negotiation. But it sounds like that being able to offer tit for tat on info and stuff like that is something that sounds kind of core to you.
Well, here's the thing. Like, I'm willing to, like, if this is something we want to take a second look at, right? This is just my broad idea of it, and I would rather put out. I think if we're truly going to make a game, which we set out to do, right?
Hmm.
I would rather put out something that is lighter, leaner, meaner, and easier to understand, and takes less time than any of the opposites of those things. So if you get the social component out of the game, if you make the board smaller, if you have less treasures, um, great. You can if it's a huge, if people love it, you can always make it more complex, But I look at like what's immediately relevant to people of all like aspects of gaming,
Hmm.
and I mean I think most people I talk with, are always down to play a game like Quacks of Quedlinburg, which I know you don't really like, or like Code Names or Patchwork or Seven Wonders, even if it's kind of grudging because some people are like uber gamers, right?
Yeah.
But it's not like everybody's going to sit down and play Twilight Imperium, which is such a go-to, right? But I think the lighter design you can have, the more economy car you can make it instead of like a SUV, I think is better in game design, especially if you're new to game design.
Yeah, yeah. Some people have their passion projects that they've been working on, and they just say like, I really want to make gigantic space exploration and trading
Oh
game,
yeah.
and you know what? That's awesome. If that's the first game you ever make, fantastic. I'm glad that you're passionate about it enough to go through hundreds of hours of playtest because each game takes 8 hours to play. You know, but
Yeah.
there's
Well,
some value in fruit smoothie.
are you familiar with Fallen Land? That game from it's an Iowa developer. It's like this big adventure story driven like 4X game. We talked about it on the podcast once, and
Okay.
all of its Kickstarters have funded. It's moderately popular and it has a pretty good rating on BGG. And John is a great guy and his whole company is awesome. But they've been working on that game for like 15 years, and there's like a million words on every card, and you have like teams of dudes that like go off and do these adventures, but you're base building, and then you're building all across the United States, and like this game is like wildly complex, and then like a lot of it comes down to like how well you can gear your party. But then I mean, there's just so much going on with it, and like this is his only game,
Right.
But that's not, I think, what we're setting out to do here. Even though I completely applaud him and offer kudos and more powers to you constantly, because it's awesome. What they've done is great, and they're like a small company, um, but I think that would be a much harder thing to get moving, right?
Oh, for sure.
So
For
so
sure. No, that's cool
yeah,
though. I like this idea of like this somewhat deduction, figuring out the clues and stuff. Yeah, figuring out clues to go around on this map and discover the treasures and try and make out with the most basically by the end of it all. Right?
sure,
Yeah.
yeah. And I think we've gone way over the amount of time. That was probably more pitch. I think we'll get better at pitching these things in a succinct manner. But yes, the basic concept is game setup is random. You're figuring out clues, and you're taking actions at the same time or programming actions. So you have to outwit other people, especially if you think they've drawn a bead on the same treasure as you. Um, and at the end of the day, it may be better to get there at the same time and split the treasure than, make a false step. But if you make a false step and, or if you make a assumption and get lucky, then that's the treasure business, baby.
Oh, I did have a thought. This is why we're going so over, is because both of us are good at spitballing thoughts back and forth on each other's ideas,
Yeah,
which
100%.
which I appreciate because Fruit Smoothie is a way better and more interesting sounding game now than it was when it was, you know, alternative victory
I
point
mean,
scoring the
as I
card
think
game.
as I think Treasure Hunter is as well. You know what I mean? So
Yeah.
that's why we're doing it together.
Yeah. So here's the thought on Treasure Hunter, right? Because my only concern, as I was thinking about this, was that what we're talking about so far with these clues is that they are 100% information clues, right?
Right.
The blue treasure is on tile B somewhere, and then another piece would say it is on row D somewhere, something like that, right? Like these are like pieces of absolute information.
Well, so I was thinking that like each board could have like certain landmarks, right? And so like for like the easier ones, like the really low treasures, the ones that like you want to guarantee you're getting because they're like little tiny pieces of loot,
Mm-hmm.
or you might like sell that information to somebody. It'd be like, hey, the crystal skull is on board A, spot 17, and that's one of the tiny treasures. But like the bigger ones might be like, this treasure is within 2 spaces of a river, and the other one is like, this treasure, and it's for the same one. There's like, this treasure is on like a jungle hex,
This,
and then the other, yep,
yeah,
kind of
this
like,
is what I was looking for.
and have you and I have played Tobago together, right?
I have not. No.
So it's kind of similar to that. Like Tobago is like the lightest version, kind of what my concept for this game was way long ago. Basically, you have clue cards in Tobago, and you're making your own maps. Basically, I play a card that says the black treasure is adjacent to a palm tree, and then you mark out a bunch of all the spots adjacent to a palm tree with black cubes, and then somebody be like, yes, but it's not within 2 places of a desert. And then you look at all the spots that have black cubes on them, and you pull up everything that's within 2 spaces of a desert. And you do that until there's 1 cube left, and then you just, whoever gets there first gets it. But you
Yeah.
can also take like extra actions to like push away a cube. Like if there's 2 left, to be like, I'm getting rid of this so that I can just make sure this is it, and go pick it up. And then the way you score that game is everybody who played cards on that treasure, everybody who helped determine where it was gets a share of the loot. But the person who did the like whatever order it was done in, like you deal out a bunch of random loot cards. You get to see as many as you're gonna get. Then you throw one extra. It's kind of complicated, but basically, say I gave you gave 3 clues to the orange treasure,
Mm-hmm.
and you gave 2 clues. And then you also got the treasure. You get an extra piece because you got the treasure.
Yeah.
So we each are going to get 3 pieces of treasure, right? And then so we look at 3 cards each that have like 1 to 5 nuggets. And so I might see 5, 3, 2, and you see 4, 4, 1, right?
Mm-hmm.
And then in order of the cards playing, and the person who got the treasure goes first, you'd stick 1 extra card in there, so there's a random element. And so like a 3 comes up, and you're like, well, I know there's at least 2 4s in there, so I'm going to kick that on to the next person in order. Well, maybe I played the first card, so I could go, oh, I'll kick that on. Maybe you played the second card and played the third card, so you kick that on, and I'm like, okay, well, it's just me now, so I'm taking this one. But there's an extra one too, so if it's the one, I might be like, push it back. However, there's also like 2 or 3 like cursed treasure cards in there, and everybody who has treasure still can get treasure when that card comes up, loses all of their treasure, but everybody who took all their treasure before the cursed card comes up gets to retain all their treasure. So if you see a cursed card, you might just be grabbing everything to try to get out of there, even if it's low. But then also there's like an item you can get that like if the cursed card comes up, you just stop taking treasure, you spend the item, and you don't lose anything.
So essentially, this is Tobago. Ooh, I want to take you. This is that's how that scoring system works. There's just like a lot of like card drafting type thing almost, right?
Yeah,
Depending
you
on
and
the
I should just play
contribution.
on Board Game Arena instead of me just telling you all the rules, because it's super, super simple. And it's like, again, it's very light. It's a little gamier and headier than, like I would say, like basic Gateway,
Mhm.
because some of the concepts are a little abstract. But I would say it's like Seven Wonders complexity, which
Okay.
Seven Wonders, for some reason, people get into even if they're brand new. But I think explaining the concept of Seven Wonders is oftentimes kind of tricky to new gamers.
So yeah, so
You know,
so going back to my core concern, I think that this addresses it because my core concern was if there's too much absolute information, then it becomes I can't really puzzle it down. Whereas as there's more loose information within two spaces of a river, that's not absolute. I like that because then you might be willing to spend some time to go and do searching or exploration in spaces that you don't know there's a treasure yet. Because that if you, even if you fail, like you mentioned, the app will give you some more information towards the closest treasure, stuff like that. So that'd be an interesting puzzle to put together.
Yeah. Yeah, and then like the getting into like the main chamber would have like a different type of puzzle, and it would always be the same type of puzzle, but it would be a puzzle you'd have to figure out, and maybe it'd be the kind of thing where like you're just like unscrambling four letters into a word or something. I mean, this is just a basic idea. Like, so say you get like W, R, and D, and you're like, okay, well, what four-letter words can I make with that? Draw, ward, word. And so like you could go like start like trying to program stuff in, but I wouldn't want to do a word one because usually there's too many combinations of four letters. Like I'd want to do something where you could puzzle it out explicitly and get the exact answer if you had all four pieces, but also something where if you had three pieces, you could do some guesswork, and maybe get it. Like have like a 50% chance at getting it.
Interesting. Yeah.
So. But yeah, that's we're way over time now, so let's hatch that one up. Let's maybe just review the games we talked about today. So first off, we talked about fruit salad or fruit smoothie or whatever we want to call it, a bidding kind of a secret bidding and bluffing game where you remove cards from your hand to make fruits score you more points, with a possible component of modular decks and a possible component of special instances on certain types of cards. But maybe wouldn't need those depending on how fun the game is just to play the basic way. And we talked about a treasure hunting game called
Treasure Tactics.
Treasure Tactics. I don't know, that seems like a 19, like it either seems like a game I would buy on Steam, like a strategy RPG about like treasure hunting. I would want it to have like a thematic name, you know what I mean? Like Kokomo. Like, you're going to an island, maybe it's the name of the island, maybe it's the name of the jungle, maybe it's the name of the temple. And then we could do some searching on like maybe make it historic, or maybe come up with all of our own intellectual property for the place that it's in.
Right. Yeah. One of the hard things about going historic is the insensitivities of marching into someone else's culture and be like, "Where's your gold?"
Exactly. I don't know if there's been like a lot of clapback against Karuba, but it would be about that level of insensitive. You know what I mean?
Yeah, exactly. Karuba is such a fun game. I don't know if it catches much heat, but yeah, there's that idea of like, well, and you mentioned the idea of you go to a village and you try and get some clues or whatever,
and they're like yeah, in the game they're willing to help.
Yeah, but like it would make an interesting statement if like the villagers were willing to help and be like, "I'm tired of these people coming here and asking us for help with their treasure hunts and stuff." Like, it would be an interesting thing to be able to include little like different perspectives than usual of like, go to tile C, just like this.
Yeah, and we could put that into the thing too, and I think it would. Yeah, I don't know, because you definitely don't want to be insensitive. But I think everybody thinks searching for treasure is a pretty exciting thing.
It's a very Karuba, it's a perfect example of it. So that'd be interesting. But yeah, because you mentioned like flavor text and like walls of text and stuff earlier, so we'll call this one. Let's see. What did you come up with a name for it? Like, Karuba San Diego.
Yeah, here is a way that the game could not be offensive. Just if we want to come back and listen to this and cap something on, just a thought. It could be a completely deserted, wiped out civilization, and basically if you show up at like the village, nobody's there. It's completely a ghost town. But searching through the village helps you find some clues.
Yeah. I mean, yeah. There's always ways that you can avoid just like
it's a completely made up like Atlantis type thing.
Yeah, exactly. Make it Atlantis.
And yeah, nobody's there, so who cares if you steal the jewel out of the temple?
You're not using like people as like this backdrop of like
It's a
you.
it's a
Yeah,
dead civilization that we made up.
yeah, interesting. Yeah, I mean, and there's stuff like that. That's part of the reason why space exploration tends to not be, you know,
Yeah,
offensive.
or like Skyrim. You know, you pillage all these dwarven ruins, but all the dwarves died out years ago. Um,
Hmm. All the dwarves are gone. I've never played Skyrim.
in Skyrim, yeah, the dwarves are gone.
Ah, it's too
I don't
bad.
even like. There's like relief. I think the word is relief, like masks of like what dwarf faces looked like, but there's a like nobody really knows. I don't think dwarves have been in any of the Elder Scrolls games. Maybe one day. Um,
I've never played any of
so
them. Interesting. All right,
well,
so
if you never played Skyrim, um, it's been out for almost 9 years. I don't know what you've been waiting for, but they're not adding any more content. And it's on everything, and it's like one of the most wildly successful and addictive games of all time, and probably the last good game Bethesda's made, in my opinion, and maybe
interesting.
the last one they'll ever make. We'll see. So
Yeah, we'll see. So anyway, Karuba San Diego or whatever you end up coming up with, the name of the island or something like that.
yeah,
Atlantis.
yeah. But I would want to give people a more jungly vibe, so maybe like we call it like Coco Toco or something. You know, something that's not real, but sounds like it's in a jungle and not underwater.
That's fair. Yeah, yeah. All right, man. So
Bongo, bongo, wongo.
so I think that these are two very different ideas, and I like the fact that they're different, like you said, like we said, from just like our typical fare of what we ingest a steady diet of playing, but both in a fun space that like I want to explore more. So card
Hmm.
game, big old adventure game with some deduction. Sounds good.
Yeah, medium old adventure game. But I think I would like to point out, I think we both came up with much better ideas for episode one.
Than we did with
So,
the things that we literally came up with on the spot, like an impossible to make miniature golf simulator.
but this was we only had like a paragraph each. You know, most of what I was telling you was just like what was in my heart, but it hadn't necessarily been in my head. You know what I'm saying? Uh, but yeah, sorry for getting too verbose. I think it's entirely my fault that this went for an hour and a half today. So
Eh,
maybe next time it goes for an hour and a half, it can be your fault.
perfect. I will hold me to that. And if we do not go an hour and a half, I will hold myself completely responsible for that.
Yeah. But hey, you know what? We're new at game design. We're not Hollywood guys yet. We haven't gotten the pitch down. But I think next time we can shoot for an hour. And maybe 45 minutes today was going over. Do you think we can cut this down by a third for next episode?
Yeah, let's try that. Let's try that. All right.
Okay.
So cool. Yeah, if you're listening, please tell us what you think about these ideas. If you want to, we have a Twitter account now, which is at, what was it? Board_factory, right?
Yes. And here's the thing: is I created the Twitter, but I'm guessing you will anytime somebody's tweeting on it, it's probably gonna be Chris because Twitter is not my hat.
That
But
that's fair. That's fair.
you know, I'll try. I'll give it my best shot.
All right, yeah, give it the old English try.
Yeah.
But yeah, if you want to connect with us on at board_factory and just talk to us about game design ideas and stuff that you've had, we'll hash stuff out too. We'll talk about that for sure. So anyway, my name is Chris.
And this is Cam, and this has been CNC Board Game Factory, filmed in front of a studio audience.
Let's see if I know how to end the stream because this is weird. Hey, vamp for me, would you?
As in like just make cool faces.
Yeah, go ahead and make cool faces. Oh dear. I don't know how to stop streaming. This is a different view than usual. Well, it's a good thing nobody's watching because
Can I be done voguing now?
I literally don't know what to do. Cool, man.
Can I stop the stream?